Buonasera a tutti. Good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo. Grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Well, today we're going to have a very nice conversation with writer Marina Marazza. 712 years ago, Dante, the poeta, il sommo poeta, left us. And so there were a lot of celebrations honoring the greatest representative of the Italian literature. And with Marina, on the other hand, we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful conversation on one of her books, La moglie di Dante, Dante's wife. Marina's passion has been to put on light, to shed light on the women, the wives of very notorious people, whether they were writers, inventors, and so forth, within an historical context. But before revealing all the information about Dante's wife, a little pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for nearly 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations, where their friendly baristas and familiar faces will make you feel at home. Because a trip to La Prima is like a trip to Italy, only closer to home. Well, I am so excited to have Marina Marazza with us today. This is going to be a journey and also a way of getting to know not only Dante's wife, but also Dante in a different way, the human side of Dante. Marina, welcome to the program. Benvenuta.
Grazie mille di ospitarmi in questa bellissima trasmissione.
She's thanking us for having her here on the program. Marina and I will conduct this interview in Italian and in English, so stay online with us. So Marina, I would like to, so Marina, pretty much maybe when girls were still playing with dolls, not to use stereotypes. I think Marina was already fixing the commas on people's work. So I want to find out where her passion, or maybe who was someone in her life that instilled this passion for writing to her. Marina, forse all'età in cui le bambine, tanto per usare, sfortunatamente per usare uno stereotipo, giocavano ancora con le bambole, tu già aggiungevi e toglievi le virgole nei lavori degli altri. Chi, come, quando, perché è nata questa passione per la scrittura?
Tutto merito della nonna Angelina. Io avevo questa nonna, classe 1898, non dovrei dirlo perché così si fanno due calcoli anche sulla mia età, ma lo diciamo, la quale era una bravissima insegnante. Io ero una bambina, una figlia unica, molto solitaria, una bambina timida, e ho imparato a leggere e a scrivere grazie alla nonna Angelina a 3 anni.
Okay, so the person that we have to thank for this passion is actually Grandma Angelina, Nonna Angelina. She was born in 1898, and Marina said, maybe I shouldn't reveal her age because if someone adds up the numbers, that might come up with my own age. And she was a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And Marina is an only child. At that time, she was, obviously lonely, and she learned how to read and write with her grandmother at the age of 3. That's fantastic. And so after the age of 3, when you started to read and write, do you remember maybe what was your first composition? Ti ricordi, dopo aver imparato appunto a leggere e scrivere, qual è stata la tua composizione, la tua prima composizione memorabile?
La mia prima composizione memorabile. Io ho cominciato subito a leggere tantissimo in maniera molto disordinata. C'era una cassa di libri in casa, piena di libri che i bambini non avrebbero neanche dovuto leggere, ma io in realtà ho letto tutti in modo molto disordinato. Ed è stato una scoperta per me, era un baule del tesoro, quel baule pieno di libri. E ho pensato di fare come prima cosa quello che credo tutti un po' fanno, no? Cioè io ho letto delle cose, mi ricordo che avevo letto questa bellissima storia di Zorro. Zorro il giustiziere, che credo sia anche piuttosto popolare negli Stati Uniti. E praticamente ho riscritto la storia di Zorro, ma l'ho riscritta al femminile, perché mi seccava moltissimo che Zorro fosse un uomo e che in quella storia le signorine si comportassero come principesse da campagna.
So you know, she started whenever she started to read it, she started to read really a lot, and kind of a little bit of this, little bit of that, in a very disorganized way. And she found a chest full of books in her house, and so she started to read material that probably kids of her age would not even touch or be interested in. And so the very first thing that she did, she was intrigued by the story of Zorro. We'll all know who Zorro is, you know, defending, fighting for justice. And she decided to rewrite the story, but with the voice where there is a protagonist. It's a she, it's a heroine, because she was really not happy about the fact that, you know, all these stories had a male protagonist, and women were kind of relegated to just be little princesses, cute little figures to embellish the story. Fantastico. And you have also done the same with some other characters. Hai fatto, diciamo, anche cose simili da adulta con altre storie?
No, da adulta io ho fatto un'altra cosa. Io mi sono specializzata in storia, ho fatto degli studi classici, mi sono specializzata in storia e quindi i miei personaggi non sono più stati dei personaggi fictional, ma sono andata a cercare tra le pieghe della storia con la S maiuscola, delle storie con la S minuscola che riguardassero degli uomini e delle donne del passato. Le cosiddette misconosciute, cioè delle figure per lo più femminili, che erano o non conosciute perché ignorate dalla storia o mal conosciute, e ho cercato di riraccontarle seguendo la realtà storica, ma usando la formula del romanzo e non quella del saggio.
Okay, so I asked her if growing up, you know, once she started her career as a writer, she did the same. She pursued rewriting some of the stories with a female, giving a voice to the female characters. And so Marina's background is actually in classical studies. So history obviously is a component, strong component on that. So what instead of focusing her work on characters that didn't exist, she actually, through the pages, so to speak, of history, she started to find the stories of both male and female characters that were poorly known. And by poorly known, she refers to a couple of different categories. Either they were not, maybe that had been ignored and not known at all, or maybe they were just little information. And so she decides to write their stories, but again, using history as the background. So obviously you had a very proliferous career, you know, not only about as a writer, but you also work for editing companies, where publishing houses, where maybe you learn the tricks of the trade. But this path that you have chosen to give, to shed light and to make protagonists these unknown female figures is something that was not just about you know, related to people that were historically what can I say? People that, everyone is on top of everyone's mouth or head or wherever. Dante, Manzoni, Leonardo da Vinci. You have also a keen interest in cooking. So you have also contributed with the same approach to shed light on some of the figures that were kind of in the background or maybe even not talked about of very famous chefs, for instance. Quindi questa passione, questo interesse, questo modo di riscrivere la storia e le storie non si è limitato soltanto a persone come il Dante, il Manzoni, ma anche a una passione per diciamo la cucina, e anche nell'ambito della cucina è riportato e messo sul palcoscenico, riportato in evidenza figure che erano a noi sconosciute. Can you give us a couple of examples, or maybe an example of someone that we know the main male figure, but we don't know the person that maybe favored that success?
Beh, certo, in questo campo mi viene subito in mente, quando si è parlato tantissimo dell'Artusi, l'Artusi non sarebbe stato l'Artusi se non ci fosse stata dietro l'Artusi questa figura di questa governante cuoca tuttofare, questa mitica Marietta, perché Artusi era un intellettuale, era uno che le cose le metteva sulla carta, ma chi davvero prendeva il cappone, era capace di spennarlo, di riempirlo, di fare tutte le cose che poi l'Artusi ha scritto nel suo libro che è diventato un bestseller mondiale? Una figura di donna, anche qui una misconosciuta, che era la mitica Marietta, di cui abbiamo scritto sulle pagine della rivista La Cucina Italiana, della quale ho l'onore di essere la consulente storica.
Okay, so one of the most glamorous examples, who doesn't know Artusi? So Artusi was an intellectual, and it is thanks also to the housekeeper Marietta that we have this synergy of the intellectual who was probably busy writing everything. Well, Marietta was the doer, so to speak, who would be the one, plucking the feathers out of a capone or stuffing it and so forth. And so these are interesting articles that actually are available to all of us in English on La Cucina Italiana that Marina regularly contributes to. Okay, so we set the stage. And so as far as Marina's keen interest to talk about, she's been defined by the press in Italy as la narratrice delle donne nascoste. Okay, she's the voice of those, again, hidden women. And we are now getting to talk about the protagonist of your publication, La moglie di Dante. First of all, I mean, we don't take anything for granted that everyone knows everything, okay? Before we dive into the actual story of the book, who wrote about Dante first? Ok, prima di così iniziare a parlare della storia e del libro, ma chi ha scritto, chi ci ha iniziato a descrivere Dante? Chi è stata la prima persona, diciamo, che si è preso questo compito?
È assunto questo difficile compito. Un personaggio molto conosciuto, Giovanni Boccaccio. Giovanni Boccaccio, l'autore del Decamerone, del peccaminoso Decamerone, è stato il primo biografo di Dante Alighieri. E nel raccontare Dante Alighieri, perché Boccaccio era stato incaricato dal comune di Firenze dopo che Dante era morto in esilio, però era diventato famoso, allora Firenze ha rivendicato la fiorentinità di Dante e ha incaricato Boccaccio di scriverne. E Boccaccio ne ha scritto ed è stato il primo che ha accennato a quella che sarà poi la protagonista del nostro romanzo, La moglie di Dante, e cioè la nostra Gemma Donati. Boccaccio ha scritto questo trattatello, trattatello in gloria, no? In laude di Dante, e scrive questa frase, una frase che funziona come il teaser di un film. Scrive: diedero i parenti e gli amici moglie a Dante perché smettesse di piangere Beatrice, ma nuove cose e assai più complicate poterono così accadere.
Okay, so so Giovanni Boccaccio, we're talking about you know, the famous author of the Decameron, who was of the following generation of Dante, so to speak, was actually the first one that writes about Dante in his Trattatello in Laude di Dante. This work was commissioned by the city of the Comune of Firenze after Dante, posthumous, after Dante had died in exile, because they were bringing back again, they were celebrating the Florentine origins of Dante. So it is in Giovanni's, in Boccaccio's Trattatello that we see mentioned the first time the protagonist about that we're going to spend more time talking about today, which is Dante's wife, in a very, you know, we can use it almost as a teaser in a just a brief sentences in which she said that relatives and friends gave Dante a wife so that he could stop crying for Beatrice. But by doing so, more and new things, more things would unfold in the future. Okay, so that sounds, now we're intrigued. We want to know more about this story. So how about you tell us a little bit how Dante and Gemma met? Is there any historical evidence about this encounter, or was it just random?
Noi sappiamo molto bene che Dante e Gemma erano dei vicini di casa, in una città come Firenze, che non era una città molto grande. Erano vicini di casa a Firenze ed erano vicini di casa nelle loro proprietà di campagna. Quindi loro si sono visti, incontrati per strada, le loro famiglie si conoscevano. È stata come una sorta di amicizia e di conoscenza che è cresciuta pian piano negli anni.
So that's actually, it's very interesting. Dante and Gemma were neighbors, not only in their homes in their residences in Florence, but also in their residences in the countryside. And so probably there had been quite several contacts, whether it was through the family meeting or you know, in the street, so to speak. So probably it's a story of friends, the evolution of a friendship that eventually brought to their story. Can you tell us how, you know, we all think about Dante, okay, with the red hat, the nose, the profile, and everything.
Exactly.
Does Boccaccio give us a different physical description of Dante?
Assolutamente sì, credo che sia molto importante dire ai nostri ascoltatori che Dante, il Dante che Gemma incontra, è molto diverso dall'iconografia che tu giustamente ricordavi, cioè quell'uomo brutto col nasone di profilo, col cappuccetto rosso. Era un bellissimo giovanotto, con una bella barba bruna, con i capelli folti, ricci, con questi bellissimi occhioni grandi vellutati, con la carnagione un po' scura, ed era un tipo molto, molto atletico. Noi ci immaginiamo Dante con la schiena curva, che scrive, no? Invece era un Dante che andava a cavallo, era un Dante soldato, era un Dante che partecipava ai tornei, era un Dante buon ballerino, era un Dante buon conversatore. E Gemma, dal canto suo, ce la possiamo immaginare come una bella ragazza fiorentina giovane con delle bellissime chiome rosse.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is indeed something that we didn't know. So again, the picture that everyone associates Dante to look like is nowhere close to what Boccaccio is giving us as the physical description of Dante. He describes Dante as having a beautiful beard, kind of a brownish beard. He had, you know, nice hair, curly hair, darker complexion. He had big eyes and so forth. And another thing that we would not expect, we would imagine, you know, maybe Dante with a hunchback, writing, busy studying, writing, and everything, would never see the fresh air. But no, Dante was extremely athletic. He knew how to ride horses very well. He was a hunter. He was a great dancer. He was a soldier. He loved to participate in tournaments, and he was a great conversationalist. And so quite different. And then as far as Gemma also, we can expect her to be a very beautiful girl from Florence with a nice long reddish hair. Oh, it looks like this couple is very intriguing. And so tell us a little bit, kind of in plain terms, what was the situation in Florence during those years? You know, we're familiar, I mean, not everyone might be familiar with the Guelfi and the Ghibellini and so forth. It's just general historical context to the story.
Il periodo era veramente difficile da un punto di vista storico. Come forse sappiamo, i fiorentini prima si dividono in Guelfi e Ghibellini all'interno della stessa città. Dopodiché c'è la prevalenza dei Guelfi, ma a questo punto si dividono in Guelfi bianchi e in Guelfi neri. Insomma, erano proprio fumantini questi fiorentini, volevano sempre trovare. Oltre alle discordie interne ci sono le guerre esterne di una città contro l'altra, Firenze contro Arezzo per esempio. Dante andrà in guerra e sarà in prima fila tra i cavalieri cosiddetti feditori che impugnano la lancia e reggono l'attacco nemico. Quindi ci sono delle guerre esterne e delle guerre interne che dividono con delle guerre civili la stessa città di Firenze. Questo rende tutto il contesto intorno estremamente complesso.
Okay, so as far as the historical period, again, Florence was divided into the two factions of the Guelfi and the Ghibellini. So that within the same city, it saw the prevalence, the predominance of the Guelfi, but at that point, the conflict is not over because the Guelfi themselves divide themselves in white and black, Guelfi bianchi e Guelfi nere. So we have these internal fights. In addition to that, then there are also external fights, wars. The notorious animosity between Florence and Arezzo. And actually Dante, again, is one of the soldiers on the horse that participates in the first row to defend the city, Florence, from the assault of the enemy. So we can say that the context, the historical context is indeed, at this point, very complex, okay? Obviously, now again, there is a new site of Dante, defending the city. And we know about the Battle of Campaldino. Again, Dante, as you said, is in first row. I'm sure he didn't come out this experience without cuts and bruises, okay? Just to, what is the encounter now when Gemma hears that Dante was in battle? Do we have any recollection of her feelings or her sight of Dante coming out of battle? Descrizione da parte di Gemma quando sente che Dante era in battaglia, quali sono alcune delle sue, diciamo, emozioni?
Le donne fiorentine si erano radunate dentro una chiesa ad aspettare che i loro uomini tornassero dalla battaglia. E finalmente arriva il messaggero che dice che i Fiorentini. Mi piacerebbe raccontarlo proprio con le parole di Gemma brevemente, e vedere come Gemma va a trovare Dante reduce dalla battaglia di Campaldino, perché avremo anche un piccolo scoop per quanto riguarda il famoso naso di Dante Alighieri.
Okay, so just to get everyone on a listening thing, so all the women had gathered in the church waiting for news about the destiny of their loved ones that had gone into battle. And Marina would like to tell us through Gemma's own words when she goes and pays a visit to Dante. And here we're also going to get a little scoop about Dante's nose. So Marina is going to read Gemma's words in Italian. Then after that, I will try my best to give a summary of this beautiful encounter. Please.
La notizia corse di uscio in uscio e mentre il sole calava, tante nocche batterono in tutta la città sul legno delle porte in un frenetico e vicendevole annuncio. Avevamo sconfitto gli aretini. Io mi rituffai nella folla per raggiungere la casa degli Alighieri dove Tana, la sorella di Dante, mi stava aspettando. E qui lo hanno ferito, mi disse concitata. Ma come sta? Ha la febbre e il naso rotto, il cerusico se ne sta occupando. Ha ricevuto un gran colpo sul paranaso dell'elmo quando è stato sbalzato da cavallo, a quel che ho capito. Mi avvicinai a Dante che stava sdraiato sul letto con un panno che gli copriva mezza faccia. Come ti senti? Lui sussultò. Gemma, sei tu? Si tolse il panno dal viso e fui io a sussultare. Era una maschera color borgogna, col naso enorme e deformato e gli occhi così gonfi sopra e sotto da non riuscire a schiuderli. Cercò di mettersi seduto. Ma passerà e non potrà essere tanto peggio di come era prima, questo mio gran naso. E qui non si poteva fare diversamente. Nessuno che non abbia preso parte a questa battaglia può pensare di poter farsi ascoltare a Firenze. E ora posso dire che a Campaldino io c'ero.
Fantastic, fantastic. So the rumors obviously went from door to door as the sun was coming down and everyone was knocking on the city doors to indeed spread the great news that Florence had finally defeated Arezzo. And so Gemma, she just runs through the crowd to get to the Alighieri's house, where Dante's sister, Tana, was waiting for her. And so Gemma enters and she says, is he here? Is he wounded? And she was all obviously, all concerned. How is he doing? And they tell her that he's having a fever. He has a broken nose, and that the surgeon was taking care of him. He had received a very strong hit on the helmet, exactly the part that covers the nose, and so at that point, it was also thrown off his horse. And so Gemma gets closer to Dante, who is laying on the bed with a cloth that was covering half of her face. How are you feeling? And he said, Gemma, is it you? And he removed the cloth from his face, and the scene was just probably everything that was burgundy like. It was red with this huge nose, broken nose, and the eyes were so swollen that it was really hard to actually trying to open. And Dante tried to sit up. And Dante actually makes fun of his own nose. He said, well, he'll get better, but my nose couldn't be any worse than what it was before. And then it couldn't be otherwise, he continues. In a way, since no one is going to pay attention to you in Florence unless you participated, you took part in this battle. And I, Dante, can say that I was at Campaldino. That is it's an amazing story. Sorry for my rendition, but you guys can follow along. So we're kind of fast forwarding. obviously the figure of the character of Beatrice is the female figure everyone associates Dante, Beatrice. So Beatrice dies, and Dante even thinks to become a monk, a priest, okay, and quite depressed. We're seeing a pretty depressed Dante at that point. But Gemma is still having, still coming out strong. And that's also before, they got married. So at that point, Dante and Gemma do start their life in Florence as a couple. And as I said, Marina gave us the historical background of what was happening. So my curiosity is, what was Dante's and Gemma's life like? Okay. So Dante wants to be the poet, or Dante wants to study, maybe not the typical, idea of the bread, the winner that people might have in mind. So tell us a little bit about their life together.
Sì, è una domanda molto interessante, perché in tanti hanno detto che Dante era in realtà un po' uno scioperato, cioè era un po' una persona che non voleva fare un lavoro specifico. Lui avrebbe potuto diventare una sorta di notaio, no? Avrebbe potuto usare gli insegnamenti di Ser Brunetto Latini per diventare un segretario, un notaio, occuparsi di queste professioni. Lui in realtà voleva essere libero di scrivere e, come abbiamo visto prima, non a caso lui ha voluto partecipare alla battaglia di Campaldino, perché era molto interessato alla politica. Quindi lui voleva dedicarsi agli studi letterari, alla poesia e alla politica. E quindi Dante e Gemma vivono abbastanza in ristrettezze, perché in ogni caso Dante non era assolutamente ricco, cioè non era particolarmente un buon partito quando Gemma lo sposa, anzi la famiglia di Gemma, i Donati, erano da un punto di vista del ceto sociale messi molto meglio di quanto fossero gli Alighieri, quindi è stato proprio per Gemma un matrimonio d'amore. E quindi loro vivono in questa maniera, vivono dei loro piccoli possedimenti, delle loro piccole rendite, e Dante vuole essere un uomo libero e dedicarsi ai suoi interessi.
So Dante kind of was a little bit accused of being what we would say in Italian, scioperato. So he didn't really want to commit to a steady profession or anything. He wanted to have the freedom to pursue his studies and so forth. Considering though about his background, he could have been a notary, he could have used his Latin studies to pursue some occupation of a certain prestige. But again, the freedom of writing, dedicate his life to writing was very important to him. The fact that he participated in the Battle of Campaldino was not a coincidence, because actually that put together one of Dante's main interests and passion. That was politics. So poetry and politics, so to speak, were the two main passions of Dante. How did Dante and Gemma lived? Probably, kind of paying attention to their money. Dante was not an extremely wealthy individual. Actually, Gemma's family, the Donatis, was in a much better economical position. So this was really a marriage of love, where they managed to survive on their means of small income, and that would allow Dante again to focus his life on his passions. Let's move fast forward. Dante's passion for politics is indeed what is going to make Gemma lose Dante. We all know that Dante is a condannata a morte, okay, and 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 then eventually Dante goes into exile. So now he's Gemma with her children, having to leave everything that she owns. For sure, this was not an easy situation. So tell us a little bit about when they find out that Dante has to, Gemma has to escape from Florence, and there is a death sentence on Dante's head.
Sì. La sentenza contro Dante viene pronunciata quando lui sta tornando da Roma, e quindi ad accogliere la sentenza a Firenze c'è Gemma con i suoi figli, che si vede arrivare davanti a casa il messo del podestà, che praticamente le annuncia che Dante è stato condannato. E anche qui io userei le parole di Gemma, se tu mi permetti, per raccontare questa cosa. Io sono andata proprio a prendere gli atti, le parole esatte della sentenza di condanna. Tutti i miei libri sono sempre basati su uno studio documentale accuratissimo, e quindi sempre la storia, la vera romanziera.
So let me just catch up our listeners. So Dante's sentence was pronounced when Dante was coming back from Rome, and actually Gemma was in Florence when the ambassadors of the Podestà came to pronounce the Dante's sentence. And as Marina, as we said before, she bases her stories on history. She actually went to check the official records and quotes the official words that were used in the death sentence of Dante. And she's going to share that with us. Prego.
Il messo del podestà si era presentato in pompa magna, con 2 berrovieri che recavano gli insigni del comune, un araldo, un tamburino e perfino un trombetta. Regnante il Santissimo Padre Papa Bonifazio VIII, il giudice deputato all'uffizio sulle baratterie, inique estorsioni e lucri illeciti, ha pronunziato la seguente sentenza ai danni di Dante Alighieri del sesto di San Pietro Maggiore, stava declamando l'araldo. Lucri illeciti, ripetei stupita, lo vogliono accusare di essersi fatto corrompere intanto che era priore. L'araldo proseguiva. I quali, accusati dalla fama pubblica, sono condannati a versare 5.000 lire di fiorini piccoli per ciascuno. Non pagando in 3 giorni si guasti e si incameri ogni loro possessione. Se pagano li si confini fuori di Toscana per 2 anni e perdono i diritti politici come falsari e barattieri. Il tamburino rullò e il trombetto suonò. Tornata dentro in casa, mi guardai intorno nella stanza. C'era l'odore di casa mia. Ogni casa ha il suo odore, se ci si fa caso. Noi tenevamo tutto ben pulito, lavato e strofinato, e mettevamo erbe fresche e fiori. Dentro la cucina si respirava profumo di pane appena sfornato e di strofinacci di tela pulita che sapevano di lavanda. C'era il letto dove avevo partorito i miei figli, il tavolo dove avevamo diviso il cibo quotidiano, il sedile di pietra accanto alla finestra dove mi piaceva star seduta a ricamare, rubando fin l'ultimo raggio di luce. Ogni angolo era un ricordo, ogni suppellettile aveva una storia d'affezione. Di dentro ci sentivamo sicuri. Le lacrime cominciarono a colarmi sulle guance. Ma come faccio? Voglio avere il figlio che porto nel ventre in questa casa. Dio santo, come faccio a lasciare tutto quanto? Ad andar via in questo modo, scappando come se riconoscessi che quel che dicono di Dante è vero. E come faranno i figlioli? Mia madre mi prese tra le braccia. Cara, qua non puoi rimanere. La tireranno giù pietra per pietra questa casa. E quando spalancammo le porte del cortile, vidi subito che un nuovo foglio era stato appisso vicino a quello che Pietro aveva strappato. Mi avvicinai lentamente perché avevo paura di quello che c'era in letto. Feci scorrere il dito sulle righe, sillabando le parole del latino notarile. Mio figlio Giovanni era dietro di me, sentivo il suo respiro accelerato sul collo. Si, quis, predictorum, sillabai a stento. Mi girai a guardare Giovanni, era bianco come un cencio. Che cosa dice Giovanni? Era bravo in latino il mio figliuolo. Lui inghiottì 2 volte prima di riuscire a trovare il fiato. Dice che se prendono il babbo vivo sul territorio del comune di Firenze, lo bruciano via.
Wow, wow, wow. So let's give a little bit of a idea of what you have just read for us. So the ambassador of the Podestà, maybe we could say like the mayor of the city, all dressed up and everything, accompanied by a herald and even a little tambourine man and a trumpet player. Give us the announcement, the notice that according to the Pope Bonifacio VIII, who was indeed the judge on cases of bartering or extortions or some illegal earnings, had pronounced the following sentence towards Dante Alighieri. And the accusation was about illegal earnings, and Gemma couldn't believe her ears. What kind of illegal earnings? So what do they're trying to accuse him of being bribed while he was a priest, a monk. And so the herald continued to say the actual punishment. So to those that were accused of such a crime, they had to pay 5,000 fiorini, the coin at that time. And if they didn't pay within 3 days, all their possessions would be confiscated. And if they paid, on the other hand, they had to be living outside Tuscany for 2 years, and they would lose all the political rights, being accused of being, so to speak, barterers. And then at the end of this sentence, the tambourine man and the trumpet played, and that was the end of it. So now Gemma shares her emotions. She goes inside the house, and the first thing that she describes is the smell. She said every house has its unique smell. And that doesn't happen by coincidence. You know, they kept everything well cleaned, and well, you know, really the house is very well taken care of, and they had fresh herbs and flowers, and in the kitchen you can smell a bread that it was just coming out, and you can smell also the fresh smell of clean towels. They smell like lavender. And then there was the bed where she had delivered her children, the table where they had shared their everyday food, everyday meal. And then the little stone seat that next to the window where Gemma loved to spend hours and hours crocheting until the last ray of light. So in every corner, there was a memory. Every object had a story to tell. And that was the place where they felt safe. So then her tears started to come down her cheeks. But how am I going to do? I want to give life and birth to the child that I'm bringing inside me. My God, how I'm going to do, how I'm going to leave all of this, and living this way, escaping as if I would admit what they're accusing Dante of, and how are the children going to do? Gemma's mother gives her, takes her in her arms and says, "Dear, you can't stay here. You know they're going to take down this house stone by stone." And then when they opened the doors to the courtyard, she saw that there was another notice that had been affixed just next to the one that Pietro had taken down. So Gemma slowly gets close to the notice, and she was fearful of what she would have read. She took her fingers and kind of followed the words, trying to pronounce the words written in Latin. And Giovanni was behind her, and she could hear him breathing. And she says, "Si quis predictorum," and very slowly she pronounces these words in Latin. And she turns towards him, and he was white as a ghost. "So Giovanni, what is he saying? He was good in Latin and was my child." He swallowed twice before she managed to find the courage to say, if the notice says that if they're going to catch Babbo, which is a typical Florentine way of referring to dead, on the territory of the Comune in Florence, they'll burn him alive. Wow. This is getting intense, and I'm sure the question that everyone, not everyone, but most people would ask at this point, why didn't Gemma follow Dante in exile? And how now, you know, she has children, I think 3 + 1 she's carrying, so it's 4 children. How is she going to survive now that her husband is going to be in exile?
Certo. Ma allora, molti infatti mi chiedono come mai Gemma non ha seguito subito Dante in esilio. La verità è che Dante non aveva un posto dove stare nemmeno per se stesso. Lui comincia proprio questo pellegrinaggio andando da una parte all'altra cercando ospitalità e cercando di ripagare l'ospitalità con quel lavoro che lui prima non aveva voluto fare, ma che di fatto poi farà, perché lui diventerà una sorta di segretario diplomatico dei vari signori che lo ospiteranno, no? Di volta in volta. Quando finalmente Dante troverà una sistemazione stabile a Ravenna, molti anni dopo, chiamerà Gemma. E nel frattempo capiteranno tante cose, almeno 2 cose dobbiamo dire. La prima è che per le leggi del tempo il marito o la moglie, e quindi il consorte, condivideva la sentenza che era stata emanata ai danni della persona ritenuta colpevole. La seconda cosa che dobbiamo dire è che i figli maschi, man mano che raggiungevano quella che veniva considerata l'età maggiore, dovevano a loro volta, se il padre era stato condannato all'esilio, essere esiliati.
Very, very interesting explanation. So to the answer to the question that people might ask, why didn't Gemma follow Dante in exile right away? Well, the answer is not that easy, okay? Because first of all, Dante himself didn't have a precise place where to go to. So he starts this kind of pilgrimage, so to speak, to find hospitality. And ironically, he starts now to, in order to pay back the hospitality, to do some of those functions that back in the day he refused to do, which becoming maybe the secretary, the diplomatic secretary of these noblemen that were giving Dante hospitality. Eventually, when Dante finds home in Ravenna, Gemma will follow him, but in the meanwhile, there were a lot of things that have happened, but also something else that we need to say. The fact that there were a couple of laws. One is that the spouse of the person that had a sentence against, he or she would indeed be subject to the same sentence. And the other one refers to the sons of Dante. There was another law that said that once they became of age, they too had to go in exile. So that's pretty, povera Gemma, she lost her wife, and eventually she's going to lose her children one by one. And so it looks like the relationship, their life was full of high and lows and everything. So we are going to fast forward to Dante, coming back to Florence. Thanks to what could Dante come back to Florence?
Dante spera di riuscire a tornare a Firenze in diversi momenti.
Yeah. So yes, yeah, because we know he's in the yes.
Sì,
So,
nel senso che ci sono 2 o 3 occasioni durante le quali, man mano che il tempo passa, perché noi dobbiamo tenere presente che nel frattempo gli anni passano, no? E quindi cambiano un po' i governi, alcune cose sono dimenticate, vengono anche promulgate 2 amnistie che permetterebbero ai condannati di ritornare, come spesso avviene, no? Quando i governi cambiano e quando, diciamo, si formano delle nuove coalizioni, eccetera, eccetera. Ma è Dante che rifiuta queste possibilità. Per la prima volta lui non viene compreso nella prima amnistia perché lui aveva scritto delle cose molto forti contro i fiorentini nel frattempo e i fiorentini non gliela perdonano. La seconda volta lui viene compreso nell'amnistia e Gemma spera che lui possa ritornare, ma è Dante stesso a rifiutare quella possibilità perché lui potrebbe tornare soltanto al patto di riconoscere in qualche modo le sue colpe e in una maniera molto umiliante, nel senso che lui si dovrebbe vestire di tela di sacco, mettere un cordone al collo, proprio come un penitente, e pagare una grossa multa alla città di Firenze. Lui nel frattempo ha cominciato a scrivere la Divina Commedia, sta diventando famoso grazie alla Divina Commedia e spera che lui potrà tornare a Firenze per fama, perché sarà Firenze che secondo lui lo dovrà chiamare in quanto cittadino illustri di Firenze. Ma purtroppo questo, finché lui sarà vivo, non capiterà.
Okay, so the question was when is Dante when is he going to have the opportunity to come back to Florence, and does that occur? So obviously we have to also imagine that years are passing by, and so there were actually 2 amnesties during the period that could have that were proclaimed. In the first one, actually, Dante didn't fall under, didn't qualify for it because in his writings he had already he had really offended the Florentine people, so that disqualified those writings, disqualified him for taking advantage of the first amnesty. The second one was the one that really Gemma was hoping that Dante would go for, because he would, so to speak, qualify. But there was a string attached to it. There was indeed a condition that he would also succumb to a very humiliating conditions, which would have seen him walking through the city with like a monk's sack, and with a cord around his neck, and it would pay also a huge amount of money to the city of Florence. And Dante is not willing to do that. These are the years that he started to write the Divine Comedy, La Divina Commedia, and he's becoming more and more recognized and famous. And Dante hopes that eventually Florence is going to call him back for his fame, for his productions. But we know that that is not going to happen. So let's get to another question. Why is Gemma not mentioned in the Divine Comedy?
Questa è un'altra domanda che mi fanno molto spesso. La verità vera è che nessuna persona reale dell'entourage di Dante viene citata nei suoi scritti, perché l'autobiografismo di Dante è assolutamente fittizio. Non solo Dante non cita Gemma, non cita i suoi figli, di cui pure lui si occupa tantissimo, non cita sua sorella Tana, che è una delle persone che gli stanno più vicino durante tutto il periodo dell'esilio. Lui cita soltanto Beatrice, perché Beatrice è una figura estremamente allegorica, come, se tu vorrai, vedremo quando finalmente ci sarà questa chiarificazione tra Dante e Gemma, prima che lui muoia, a proposito di quello che davvero ha significato Beatrice e ha significato Gemma.
So this is a question that often is asked, and we have to, and the answer is that Dante does not mention in any of the real people that were in his life, in his writings. He doesn't, everything is kind of fictional. So he doesn't mention Gemma. He doesn't mention even his children that he's so attached to. He doesn't even mention Tana, his sister. He mentions Beatrice as this allegoric figure that he created in his also imaginary, whether it's a real human being or not. And we will get to the end of this interview. At some point, you have to stay tuned in when I think Gemma is going to ask Dante about Beatrice. And I think this is where we want to hear from Gemma again, right?
Sì, mi piacerebbe molto che fosse Gemma a raccontarci questa cosa.
Mm-hmm.
Qui ci troviamo in una situazione particolare. Dopo tanti anni di lontananza, Gemma finalmente si è riunita a Dante, a Ravenna, quando lui ha pensato di essere in una situazione stabile. Però purtroppo, non appena Gemma l'ha raggiunta a Ravenna, il signore di Ravenna ha incaricato Dante di una missione diplomatica a Venezia. E da quella missione diplomatica a Venezia, Dante torna malatissimo, con una forma di malaria fortissima, che lo conduce alla morte in pochi giorni.
Mm-hmm.
Ecco, questo dialogo che adesso noi raccontiamo è proprio tra Gemma e Dante, che ormai è sul letto di morte.
Okay, so just to paint the background, so to speak, of what is happening. So many years of Gemma and Dante being far away and separated. Finally, Dante finds his stable place, so to speak, in Ravenna. But as life always offers a twist, right? It's never smooth sailing. Dante is then in charge of a diplomatic mission to Venice. And during this diplomatic mission, Dante will catch malaria. That is going to be eventually how Dante is going to die. So here we're going to have hear about kind of the final conversation between Dante and Gemma on Dante on his deathbed.
Nei giorni che seguirono, Dante fu raramente destro, dormiva, o comunque era in uno stato di incoscienza anche per effetto degli infusi che si somministrava per non farlo soffrire, e solo di tanto in tanto apriva gli occhi e mi cercava. Non sempre parlavamo, anche perché lui faceva gran fatica, ma alcune cose aveva voluto dirmele a ogni posto, con le ultime energie che gli erano rimaste in corpo. Si pensa che ci sarà gran tempo per parlare con le persone che amiamo, mi sussurrò con quel suo bisbiglio ansimante che avevo imparato a capire e che coglievo fino all'ultimo suono per riempirmi l'anima prima che lo arresto. Ma non è così e noi due avremmo avuto tanto da recuperare. Ormai avevo smesso di mentirgli sul fatto che sarebbe presto guarito. Tremavo al pensiero di quando il suo corpo vivo si sarebbe trasformato in un cadavere che avrei dovuto lavare, preparare e profumare insieme con la mia serva Gilla, come tutti gli altri cari morti che avevo disposto prima di lui alla sepoltura. Pensavo spesso che sarebbe bastata quest'incombenza per ben disporre a una buona vita, se tutti, almeno una volta, avessero preparato un morto che amavano all'ultimo viaggio, per rendersi conto che prima o poi diventeremo una cosa fredda, inerte, destinata alla terra, e allora forse anche gli odi, le fazioni, le crudeltà, tutto quello che nel mio tempo avevo vissuto, sarebbero passi così privi di senso. Non rimpiango nemmeno un'ora della vita che mi hai dato, mi sussurrò Dante rastoso. Rimpiango solo di non averla potuta passare. Lasciai che quelle parole scendessero, come un balsamo sul mio cuore dolorante, prima che la parola che avevo sulla punta della lingua fuoriuscisse dalle mie labbra. Ma Beatrice, sussurrò. E lei, volevo domandargli, lei non la rimpiangi? Lei sempre nei tuoi pensieri che ti ha fatto quasi impazzire da giovane, che ha continuato a riempire le tue pagine anche nella commedia. Lui mi guardò stupito. Beatrice, non è mai esistito. se non nella mia immaginazione, nel mio trasporto giovanile. Gemma, io nella vita reale non ho nemmeno mai rivolto la parola, tu lo sai. Certo che lo sapevo. Ascolta, non importa. No, no, è stata prima una fantasia, un artificio per poetare, e poi un simbolo, una metafora, un'allegoria. Ma è vero che attraverso una donna nel paradiso il Dante della commedia trova la salvazione, e il Dante vero attraverso quell'opera sarà ricordato e non sarà vissuto invano. Tossì e gli diedi da bere prima che proseguisse. Ma tu sei esistita sempre invece per me, anche quando non eravamo insieme. Sollevò la mano tremante cercando il mio volto. Beatrice è un nome, niente di più, e vuol dire colei che porta alla beatitudine. Sei tu la mia Beatrice. Doveva essere la febbre. Io ero Beatrice? Io? Domandai sbalordito. Ma stremato per lo sforzo di aver tanto parlato, Dante aveva chiuso gli occhi.
I have my tissue box ready. This is very emotional. So let's see the beautiful words that you have shared with us. So again, Dante is on bed, he's on pretty much on his deathbed, and having caught malaria on his diplomatic mission to Venice. And Gemma does want to investigate a little bit about Beatrice. So in the following days, Dante rarely gains consciousness, or Dante is rarely awake. He was in and out because of all the infusions that the doctor was administering to make him suffer a little less. And once in a while, Dante would open his eyes and would be looking for Gemma. And they didn't always have the occasion, the ability to talk to one another, because it was fatiguing. It was a big effort for him. But there were some things that he wanted to tell me at any cost. And so with his last energies in his body. And Dante says, we always think that we have a lot of time to talk to the people that we love. And he whispers that with that little bit of a breath that he had. But it's not the case. And the two of us would have a lot to make up for. And Gemma had already, at this point, had given up the line that he would recover. And her thoughts were occupied by the thought of how that body who was now alive would become, unfortunately, a lifeless body. And a body that he would have to wash and prepare along with Gila and all the other loved ones that before him came. And Gemma said that she was thinking about, if we only knew about this task that is waiting for us, maybe that would be a good reminder to actually live our life in a better way, realizing that, sooner or later, we're all going to be a cold body that is destined to go under, getting buried. And maybe all the hates and the cruelties and all the factions, everything that she has seen in those years, maybe those will become meaningless if we only thought about what it would come. And Dante says that I don't regret a single hour of life that was given to me. I only regret the fact that I didn't get a chance to spend all of my time with you. And Gemma enjoys these words. It's kind of, she let it go on her ears as if it were like a bomb on her heart, a very aching heart at that point. And then Gemma takes the courage and she says, but Beatrice, and I wanted to ask you about her. Aren't you having regrets towards her? She was always in your thoughts. She was someone that you were crazy for in your youth and continue to fill your pages and even in the Divine Comedy. But then Dante looked at me being Gemma. Beatrice never existed. It was just in my imaginary, in my youth transport. Gemma, in the real life, I never talked to her, and you know that. And Gemma said, yes, I knew it, but let it go. No, Dante insists. No, it was just a fantasy. It was just something that I created in order to write poetry about. It was a symbol, a metaphor, an allegory. But it's true that through a woman in paradise, Dante finds salvation in the Divine Comedy. And it's the true Dante through that masterpiece this work that will be remembered, and he would not have lived in vain. And then Dante had started to cough, and Gemma attends to him, gives him a little bit of water, but Dante wants to say more. But you have always existed, even when we were not together. And Dante leaves his shaking hand, trying to find Beatrice's face. I'm sorry, Gemma's face. Beatrice is just a name, nothing else. And Beatrice, the names, is the one who brings someone to beatitude. You are my Beatrice. Was that the fever? I was the Beatrice? Gemma says, now not believing her ears. But then, extremely exhausted for the effort of having talked so much, Dante closed his eyes again.
Congratulations
Marina.
for this wonderful translation. It was all a mission almost impossible.
So obviously, we only took an hour to talk about a love story and also historical context that you portray in your book about this love that is a tormented love. It's adventurous, it's hard and resilient and everything. So something else also that comes through the pages is that Gemma is indeed a protagonist in her own life. She's not the princess, she's not the cute Florentine noble woman, that wakes up in the morning and what. So Gemma, if you were to define Gemma, who is Gemma?
Io ho ritenuto Gemma, dalle fonti che ho trovato, dai suoi comportamenti, da quello che ha saputo fare in un'epoca in cui veramente la donna contava molto poco e faceva molta fatica a cavarsela da sola, l'ho trovata una donna estremamente moderna. Una donna che ha saputo perseguire il suo amore, quasi scuotere Dante e indurlo a farsi avanti. Una volta preso l'impegno, l'ha mantenuto per anni e anni, ha saputo andare a testa alta in una Firenze che riteneva suo marito in quel momento una persona colpevole e addirittura un traditore. L'ho trovata proprio una quasi, vorrei dire, un'antesignana di un certo femminismo positivo, nel senso che lei è riuscita a cavarsela per decenni da sola in un contesto medievale dove una donna non poteva fare nulla senza avere un tutore, un mondo aldo, come si chiamava a Firenze. Lei ha saputo andare da sola dal messo notarile di Firenze a reclamare gli interessi sulla sua dote. Ci sono proprio dei documenti che lo attestano. Ecco. È stata una donna che ha saputo amare, è stata una moglie esemplare, è stata una madre esemplare, però la storia è riuscita in qualche modo ad unificare.
Asking about Gemma, a few final words about Gemma. Looking at the sources that Marina obviously studied in order to write her book, looking at the behaviors, looking at the fact that women in those years didn't really count for much. They maybe had didn't have decision power, or Gemma is an extremely modern an example of a modern woman, someone that has managed to withstand history and everything that happened to her family to pursue her love, someone that maybe pushed Dante to go forward in situations where Dante would have maybe stayed back or not have been so courageous. Is someone that walked with her head straight up in a Florence that was accusing Dante of being guilty and being a traitor. Someone that managed to manage on her own in a period, the Middle Ages, again, without having a tutor or some sort of figure that would lead her through life. And to the point that she actually, when she went to the notary to claim the interest on her dowry by herself. It was a woman that knew how to love. She was an exemplary wife. She was an exemplary mother. History was not on their side. Just one more question. Well, actually two. First, we shall wait for the English translation of your work now in print. I'm sure we have got a lot of interest, and I'm also part of several book clubs where we do have to have always an English translation to the Italian book. So that we'll be rooting for Sina to see your books translated in English and making it to this side of the ocean. Some of the other women that you portrayed in some of your books, and you also were the winner of Premio La Bancarella. Tell us a little bit about some of your recent accomplishments, and again, some other women that you presented to us that otherwise would have been unknown or less known to us.
Sì, le mie misconosciute sono parecchie. Diciamo che io ho scritto di diverse donne, analogamente a quello che ho fatto per Gemma Donati. Ho scritto sulla monaca di Monza, Virginia de Leyva. Ho scritto sulla figlia della monaca di Monza, perché non tutti sanno che la monaca di Monza ebbe da questa sua relazione segreta con Giovan Paolo Osi una figlia che si chiamava Alma. Ho scritto sulla madre poco nota di Leonardo da Vinci. Si dice in latino mater semper certa. In questo caso il pater per Piero da Vinci era certo, la mater molto incerta. Ci sono diverse teorie sulla madre di Leonardo da Vinci, e io ho seguito proprio questa teoria di questa professoressa Elisabetta Livi dell'Università di Firenze, che ha fatto uno studio accuratissimo sulle carte anagrafiche catastali. Abbiamo ricostruito insieme questo profilo. E poi, come tu giustamente accennavi, ho scritto su Caterina d'Abroni, la strega di Milano, un esempio di quelle donne che durante la Controriforma nel Seicento sono state accusate di stregoneria e sono state bruciate in Italia. Ed è stato con Io sono la strega che ho vinto la finale del Bancarello. Vorrei aggiungere che quest'anno sono i 450 anni dalla nascita di Caterina d'Abroni, bruciata a Milano nel 1617. Quest'anno sono anche i 150 anni dalla morte di Alessandro Manzoni, e la mia novità di quest'anno racconta le due mogli di Alessandro Manzoni, il famoso autore dei Promessi Sposi, il quale si sposò ben 2 volte. Prima con una donna che si chiamava Enrichetta Blondelli, la seconda volta con una donna che si chiamava Teresa Bordi, e attraverso la voce della sua seconda moglie ricostruisco il Manzoni uomo padre e marito molto imperfetto.
Mm-hmm. Very, very, very interesting. So the question was, what are some of the other women that Marina has brought to us with her wonderful books? And so the first one is the Monaca di Monza, which for those of you who have spent years on the Promessi Sposi might recognize the character, but also another book on the daughter of the Monaca di Monza, as not many might know that the Monaca did have a daughter. Then another book is dedicated to the mother of Leonardo da Vinci. There is this saying that the mother is always certain and the father isn't. In this case, actually, the father is certain, but the mother is not. And Marina based her book also on the study of a university professor from Florence, who has done a very thorough study of, again, the birth of the parents of Leonardo da Vinci. Another publication is on Caterina da Brosia, if I get it, Brosio. She was one of the witches, so that got burned during the Reform years. And so this year is the 450th anniversary since the birth of Caterina. This publication has won Marina the award of the Premio Bancarella, and also her latest book, since we are 150 years from Manzoni's, remind me, Death or Birth?
Death.
So, yes. She actually talks about the two wives of Alessandro Manzoni, and through the words and the recollections of the second wife, we'll get to know and meet a new Alessandro Manzoni, the man, the father, and maybe not the so perfect human being. Marina, I cannot thank you enough for spending so much time with us. This has been a wonderful conversation. I wanted to wish you great success, and I cannot wait to get my hands on more books once I come to Italy. I'll stuff my suitcase with all. And
thank you so much.
Because again, you're proliferous also in some other publications that we didn't have, other genres that we didn't have time to cover today. But unfortunately, our time is up. Il Big Ben ha detto stop. It's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning into the program. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have any travel topics you would like us to address, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, please visit our website at www.istitutomonditaliano.org and click on the Italian Radio Hour tab. You can also subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube or where you catch your favorite podcasts. I would like to thank our guest, Marina Marazza.
Grazie infinite.
Our sponsor is Istituto Mondo Italiano, la prima espresso and alla buona for the music. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.